Just offshore in the Bahamas, underwater stones line up in a way that makes people pause. Flat blocks. Sharp edges. A long path-like formation under clear water. That is the Bimini Road. Some people see a submerged ancient roadway. Some see a natural beach rock formation broken by tides and time. And some see the story that made the site famous, a possible clue to Atlantis. The mystery is not whether the formation exists. It does. The mystery is whether the pattern is evidence of a lost world, or a natural shoreline feature that looks far more deliberate than geology usually promises. To understand Bimini Road, you have to understand the setting. The Bahama banks are shallow, bright, and dynamic. Water moves across them. Sand shifts. Tides rise and fall. And the seafloor is constantly being edited by natural forces. That matters because the whole debate begins with appearance. In a calm, clear shallow sea, a broken line of stone can look surprisingly architectural. If the water is blue enough and the edges are straight enough, the human brain starts to narrate a story before the evidence is fully checked. That is not a flaw in science. It is the reason science has to slow the story down. The modern mystery burst into public view in the 1960s. Divers reported a long, blocky, underwater feature near Bimini. The shapes looked arranged. The spacing looked intentional. And the name Bimini Road caught on quickly because it described what people thought they were seeing. That is an important clue in itself. The story did not begin with a proof. It began with a visual impression. From that point on, the debate was never just about stone. It was about interpretation. When does a natural line of rock become a road? And what kind of evidence would actually settle the question? The site became even more famous because of Atlantis. In the wake of Edgar Cayce's readings and later popular retellings, Bimini Road was linked to the idea that remnants of Atlantis might survive in the Bahamas. That connection made the formation feel larger than itself. Suddenly it was not just a weird line of stones. It was a possible chapter in a lost civilization story. That is why the site travels so well online. Atlantis gives the eye something to aim at. A single word can turn a geological oddity into a global legend. But a legend is not a measurement. If we want the real answer, we have to separate the attraction of the myth from the evidence on the seafloor. The strongest scientific explanation points to beach rock. Beach rock is limestone that forms in the intertidal zone, where sediment, cementation, waves, and chemical changes can lock material into hard layers. Once formed, it can fracture in straight lines. It can split into blocks. It can create shapes that look engineered. And it can do all of that without human builders. That is the part people often miss. Nature does not need to imitate architecture on purpose. It only needs the right chemistry and the right pattern of breakage. Geologists have argued that Bimini Road fits that kind of process far better than a lost road does. If that is true, then the mystery is not how ancient engineers shaped the blocks. It is why the seafloor can look so convincingly built when it is really being shaped by tides and time. The site survives as a mystery because the human eye is extremely good at spotting order. We see lines. We see repeating blocks. We see right angles and regular spacing. Then we start naming what we think we saw. Road, wall, pavement, causeway, underwater. That instinct gets stronger because the environment already softens the boundary between clarity and illusion. Light falls differently. Waves change contrast. Visibility can make natural objects feel arranged. That does not mean the site is fake. It means the site is a perfect test of how perception and geology can work together to create a convincing story. If Bimini Road was truly a road or a major man-made structure, the question becomes brutal. Where is the wider archaeological context? Where are the tools? Where are the habitation layers? Where is the connected site that would make a roadway make sense? Without that, the formation remains isolated. And isolation matters. Archaeology is strongest when a feature sits inside a larger pattern of human activity. At Bimini, that larger pattern has been hard to prove. So the mystery remains suspended between a compelling visual and a thin evidentiary base. That is why the discussion never really dies. Fieldwork does not begin with a legend. It begins with measurements. Researchers look at block size, orientation, fracture patterns, sediment context, and whether the site connects to larger geological layers nearby. They ask if the stones are sitting where they formed, or if they were moved. They ask whether the spacing is natural or arranged. And they ask whether similar formations appear along the surrounding coast. That is the difference between a story and a site. The site can survive questions. The story has to earn them. Atlantis keeps the mystery alive because it gives the formation an emotional frame. Lost worlds are irresistible. They turn geology into destiny. They make broken stone feel like a surviving sentence from a vanished book. But that is exactly why the Atlantis connection has to be handled carefully. It can inspire curiosity. It can also blur the line between evidence and desire. The legend survived because the site was strange enough to deserve attention even before Atlantis entered the story. The story sticks because the site gives both sides something to work with. Believers see a roadway. Geologists see beach rock. And viewers see a perfect mystery object, enough structure to tempt the imagination, but not enough context to settle the argument in one glance. That is the sweet spot where legends thrive. The facts are real, the interpretation is contested, and the visual is stronger than the explanation at first look. What would settle Bimini Road? More context, better mapping, comparisons with similar formations nearby, and proof that the blocks either were or were not moved into place by people. Without that kind of evidence, the debate stays honest, but unfinished. That is frustrating if you want a clean answer. It is great if you want a real mystery. So what is Bimini Road? The cautious answer is that it is most likely a natural beach rock formation, shaped by geology, tides, and fractures. The more interesting answer is that it shows how easily a real natural feature can absorb a myth. Once Atlantis entered the picture, the site stopped being just a formation. It became a mirror for our desire to find the past hiding under the sea. Maybe that is the real mystery. Not whether the stones were placed by a lost civilization, but why a shoreline line of blocks can still feel like a message from something much older than us. The road may be natural. The story around it is what keeps it legendary. If Bimini Road made you look at the boundary between geology and legend differently, stay with the Mystery Atlas TV. We keep following the places where the ocean makes a simple answer look too strange to trust at first glance. Subscribe for the next investigation, and tell me whether you think Bimini Road is a road, a rhythm of stone, or a little of both. Evidence check. The strongest version of the Bimini Road mystery does not depend on making every block artificial. It asks a narrower question. Why does this formation look so organized from above, and what would count as proof either way? A better test would compare fracture patterns, beach rock formation, tool marks, and the way similar limestone features break in shallow water. If the stones are natural, the mystery becomes a lesson in how geology can imitate design. If any block shows clear human shaping in the right context, the case changes. That is why the honest question is not just road or reef. It is what evidence would make either answer impossible to ignore.